Welcome back to another episode of the NABC Guardians of the Game podcast. I'm your host, Tim Doyle, and today we're joined on the podcast by Howard University head coach Kenny Blakeney, who played high school basketball for Morgan Wooten, who played college basketball for Coach Mike Krzyzewski. And I set the tone with that because my next door neighbor the first 9 years of my life was Bob McKillop, who was my oldest brother's high school coach. And now that the world we're living in and the evolution of coaching, how much has that position changed since you played, since I played, to today?
Tim, I firstly thank you for having me on. This is such an honor to be a part of this conversation, this podcast, and having a chance to do something with the NABC is really unique and special, especially from a kid just from uptown Washington, D.C. All of these things that I'm doing right now, I never thought that I would ever be doing. So this is truly an honor, and I'm very humbled to have this conversation. The game is really different now. I think just probably from even my boys club coaches that I had to, as you mentioned, Coach Morgan Wooten was my high school coach at DeMatha Catholic High School, and then Coach K, Chicago guy, and, the guy who is now the probably most considered the GOAT of college basketball, head coach at Duke University. I think when I was growing up, it was more, do what you say, do as you're being told. And today it's a little bit more of a partnership. You have to give players a little bit of ownership into, I think, the program. And if not, I don't know how well they will really react to that. It's so unique with social media. I think our student athletes, they have their own individual businesses and brands as, guys that have their own platform. So they're just kind of always in I think, mindset and growing up the way that they grew up of understanding that. A lot of our guys were coached and came up in AAU ball, and that's totally like when I came up in AAU ball, you might have had 3 or 4 games, and if you won those 3 or 4 games, and then you went to the national tournament at the end, and you might have had the national competition. Now you have AAU games where guys are playing 30 to 50 games a summer. So it's a little bit more of a partnership now. I think when I came up, Tim, it was more do as you're being told.
Yeah, you won't say it, but I feel comfortable saying it. It was a dictatorship, right? They said go to the corner, throw 5 passes. Like that's what you did. You're like, all right, coach, this is what I'm supposed to do. And you mentioned the AAU circuit. I was fortunate enough to play for the legendary Gary Charles and the Long Island Panthers in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, the personalities in basketball are, the circle gets smaller and smaller as you're older. And your circle is pretty small because going through where you've coached at, you've made a lot of different stops. Now you're the head coach of Howard, but going along your coaching career, what stop to you stands out to be most significant in your career?
I think my stop at Harvard. I was very blessed and lucky to be with some great mentors along the way. Guys like Speedy Morse, Lefty Drizel, Coach David Henderson, Mike Bray. Having a chance to work for Tommy Amakerto was truly, truly special. I think I was at a point in my life too where things had slowed down for me, and I wanted to be. I was at Harvard, and when I went to Harvard, I was in the mindset of like, Tim, like, do I get out of the business,
Right?
Or do I really, take this opportunity and kind of see what comes from that? And I think just being around a mentor, a guy like Tommy, I haven't had a boss or a leader or a coach that was an African American since I was in 8th grade, and to just see him, how he approached everything, how he handled his business, how he mentored not only the players but the staff was, for me, that was my graduate studies that I never got in college. So it was a neat opportunity for me. And everything that I try to do, a lot of that is revolved around my time with Coach Amaker.
It's amazing you bring him up. When I was going into my senior year at Northwestern, we went on the Big Ten All-Star team trip, and he was the head coach. Now, a lot of schools didn't send all-stars. I remember going to Bill Carmody being like, I want to go on this trip because I'm a poor kid from New York. I've never been outside the country. It's the first time I ever left the country. And we spent about 2 weeks together, Coach Amaker and I. And I remember throughout the trip, he put his arm around me. Now I'm 23, about to be 24 my senior year. And he goes, I would love for you to finish your career and then come and coach with me. And I said, are you out of your mind? I said, I got a job making about 85 grand my first year at Northwestern. So there's no way I'm going to coach for you. I love you. I love your family. This has been awesome together. But like broadcasting, I ended up getting into it. And I've had those same conversations with myself. Am I going to stay in the business? Will I get that break? And I see a lot of parallels with my friends that are in the business as far as there is that luck involved. And now, do you get that star recruit? If you get a star recruit, can you keep them? When I asked about the evolution, I love that word partnership because guys aren't the same. You're not raised the same. And you've really embraced their branding, which I think is unbelievable. I've never heard a coach say that. When you took the Howard job, and I know you mentioned Thurgood Marshall, David Dinkins, the likes of who've gone through the doors there at Howard, did you look at their brand and say, this is a good fit for me?
Well, it's kind of, interesting because I grew up maybe a mile and a half from the campus of Howard. And being in DC, it's one of those things like, sort of like living in New York, you're there and you kind of take things for granted. And I think a lot of people in the DMV, the District, Maryland, and Virginia, really overlook and take Howard's terrific, I think, history and brand for granted. And a lot of that is that, because we have so many, you look, Tim, the last 15 to 20 years, we have more Division I athletes in basketball than any other city. And we've had more NBA players than any other city with the District, Maryland, and Virginia. And a lot of the student athletes that come out of high school are like, Howard's a great school, but are they serious about, athletics? And I was kind of the same way. So, when I looked at the job, it was, I think there was one young man in the area from the District, Maryland, Virginia that was on the roster. And which is, kind of contradictory to having the best basketball players in your backyard and not having them on your roster. So that was something very conscious I did. But yeah, the branding part was really important. Understanding the history, the culture, tradition, understanding the alums. That's all part of the package. And I've seen that package at Harvard. I've seen that package at Duke. And I think most of the really good academic schools like Northwestern, they utilize all those tools and resources to kind of, I think, complete that 360-degree experience for a student with, the academics and being an athlete.
Yeah, I think the one thing I learned, and I started my career at St. John's, and I looked at the networks growing up in New York, going to St. John's, what my future could lie ahead getting a job, because I kind of knew that playing at the highest level was going to be a far-fetched goal. And then when I left and I went to Northwestern, I looked at it from another networking point of view. And, you bring up schools that have great brand names and networking. And getting back to recruiting, kind of the DMV, is that where you start? Do you suggest coaches to start at that level? Does Coach K start at that level? Does Tommy Amaker start at that level? Or does every school kind of have its own story?
Yeah. Well, I think, if you look at a little bit of Coach K's track record in history, a lot of his players are from the DC area. You go back to Tommy Amaker, Johnny Dawkins, Billy King, Danny Ferry, Brian Davis, Crawford Palmer, Grant Hill, myself, Tony Lang, Tyler Thornton. You can go down the list of guys that have been on his team. And it's like, hey, if some of those schools would have, between DC and North Carolina, would have intercepted some of those players,
Yeah,
maybe they would have had some of that success that Coach K's experienced. So I think a lot of it has to do with, understanding one, the background of the coaches here. I've, like you mentioned, was very lucky to play for Coach Morgan Wooten, but you got guys like Stu Vetter, you got guys like Red Jenkins, guys like Joe Gallagher, guys like Steve Turner. You can go down the list of coaches, high school coaches that are in the area that have done unbelievable jobs with their programs. So those guys have, one, been coached very well, and two, they've been battle tested. So having confidence and knowing what those guys can do once you put them on the floor, it helps you almost skip a level, because you don't have to teach some of the things that you may have to teach from kids from programs that aren't as fundamentally sound or as well developed as some of those kids from the better programs.
This would be fighting words a couple of years ago if I was a kid saying the DMV has better players than New York. I mean, that is like the ultimate rivalry there. But as I've gotten older and I've looked at the past players coming out of the DMV, and my generation, more like Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony, I got a chance to play with Marcus Hatton. I think you're right. It's not even close, to be honest. I think the DMV does have the best players, so there's no reason not to get some top talent there in that area. And now that you're the head coach of Howard, you landed one of the top recruits in the country, and Maker. Is that the way you say his name, Coach? McCormaker. So you end up landing him. He's got off to a little bit of a slow start. He's a little bit banged up. But what did that mean to land McCormaker for your program?
I honestly, I think it means a lot of different things, Tim. When we got McCord, I think he committed on July 3rd. Since July 3rd, and I haven't checked the analytics and the data on it recently, but I know of maybe a couple months ago, before we started the season, he had over 1 billion impressions social media wise.
Wow.
And with that, our name, our university, our basketball program, Howard University, was attached to the majority of that billion. So it puts our university in I think, a light that it hasn't been before. It excites alums. It increases book sales. It increases, we've had most of our games this year that we've played, and it's been a very limited amount because a lot of them have been postponed. But, most of our games are going to be on, one form or another on ESPN. We had a nationally televised game scheduled for Martin Luther King Day with Notre Dame that was going to appear on Fox, the Big Fox. So, it does a whole lot for your program. But I think more importantly, it shows that, there's a possibility to create something that is truly unique from a university that has, like I keep always saying, and it's my branding and marketing mind coming out, the history, the alums, the tradition of Howard University, that you could do something special and unique with the basketball program.
Yeah. What is unique about coaching at an HBCU school?
I think the most unique thing about coaching at an HBCU is that you have a campus of young African-American men and women that are striving to be great. It reminded me of being on the campus of Harvard. Going to Duke, I don't know if I was looking at it the same way, because, you have so many different directions that you're being pulled with your focus. And academics was important, but so was basketball, and so were networking and, all of those other things. When I was at Harvard, I saw a whole campus of people that were trying to be presidents of their countries, trying to be the biggest investment bankers that they can be, trying to change the world. And I see the same thing at Howard. I see a bunch of brown and black faces that are trying to change the world, that are trying to be the next Kamala Harris, that are trying to be the next Thurgood Marshall, trying to be the next Andrew Young, the next Chadwick Boseman. I see that. And that is truly, I think, something that excites me and gives me some energy, being around young men and women that are just striving to be great.
When you're recruiting now, and I know, it's over Zoom, how much has that quote unquote pitch changed? right? Like, come to my school, you're going to play a lot of minutes. That's what I heard, right? And that was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to hear. I want to get there and play. And now with so many different social movements, and obviously, your position and how the whole coaching position has evolved, what are the conversations like recruiting young student athletes?
It's totally a lot different right now because I talk about all the time, to recruit one student athlete, you actually have to recruit 10 people around them. And how do you do that over Zoom or phone calls? Or it's not like you can go to the high schools now and you can have a conversation with the principal, the guidance counselor, the janitor, the cafeteria worker, the English teacher. It's truly changed in trying to learn or get to know the young man now. That part has been challenged. But in terms of our culture and history is and traditions are things that I don't think you can replicate through a Zoom. You can show a young man homecoming, but actually being at homecoming is a totally different thing. You can show a young man what the yard, which is our main quad on campus, is called the yard, what it's like on a Friday. When you walk on campus and there's one DJ spinning on the yard, you go to the cafeteria, there's another DJ spinning in the cafeteria. You go down to the valley, there's another DJ spinning in the valley. Like, all of those things you can't replicate over Zoom. So we do lose a part of it, but we have some great, I think, informative videos and talking points that the university's really helped us with, that shows the kid, I think, the value and the importance of our university and that having that experience in education from Howard.
What did you learn when you stepped away from the coaching business? You worked at Under Armour. Obviously, their brand has exploded. I'll tell you this quick story. When I was at Northwestern, we were Adidas. So whatever you think of Adidas is whatever. But I remember my first year there, we started to wear Under Armour workout shirts. And I found that unusual because, wait, we're sponsored by Adidas, but we're wearing these Under Armour workout shirts. And obviously I love them. And that just shows what a workaholic Kevin Plank was, because somehow, some way, he figured out a way to get Under Armour into an Adidas school. And now we've seen the explosion of Under Armour. But that was just something that I saw where I was like, why are we wearing this? This seems unusual. It doesn't seem to be matching up. Anyway, what did you take leaving coaching, going to work for quote unquote corporate environment, and now coming back to coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for asking. It was an education in itself. To leave a very secure situation at Harvard, where we had taken the program over 4 years from being, I think, 8-20 something our first year, to our second year being 14-14, to our third year, I think we won 21 or 22 games, to our fourth year, winning the most games in the history of Harvard basketball. Doing that over a period of 4 years, there was a lot of stability and comfort there. And I went into a world of, I don't know what I'm doing, and this is totally foreign and new to me. But Tim, honestly, I really felt that I had to do it because, I was probably 30, I don't know, 37, 38.
Yeah, that's how old I am right now. That's how old I am. And I'm having similar conversations. I have a young family with my wife about broadcasting, and that's why I feel connections with all you guys and your jobs, because I know the grind is real, and you could be on this crazy trajectory, and then one thing goes wrong, and then you're on a downfall. So I don't know what the day-to-day is like, but I know what the maybe roller coaster is like. I don't know if that's the best word for it, but that's how I view it from an outsider in the coaching world, and that's how I feel as a broadcaster. Things would be going great, and then they're not going so great. So did you have to wear a suit and sit at a cubicle? Tell me a little bit what the job was like there.
No, it was quite the opposite. It was a grind. I started, when I left Harvard, I started a licensing company that did accessories. So I sold scarves, I sold ties, I sold socks, I sold ponchos I partnered with the NBA, Major League Soccer, the NHL. We did the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. We did work for the Dave Matthews Band. Had contracts with NASCAR, and that's what I did. But I was a one-man show.
Wow.
And so I had to, get on planes and go to India and go meet with, factory owners and figure out, how do we manufacture what we're trying to get done. I had to do research and find companies in China. I had to do research and find companies in Istanbul, which I went. I had to do all this stuff that I had no idea what I was doing or how to do it, but I just had to figure it out. I had to rent a warehouse in, one of the worst areas in Brooklyn, where I had to, store my stuff. But when we had orders, I had to go over and pick and pack and then take that to a UPS store or a UPS warehouse and ship it. So it was the total opposite of the comfort and security of what I knew from being a college coach. It was a grind, and it was a day-to-day, from sun up to sundown, doing things. Sometimes I would work 20-hour days because I had to, I'm doing stuff in India or I'm doing stuff in China, and just the time difference in the, the schedule. I got production coming, and I need to figure out the logistics of, what goes on to how do you get stuff from JFK Airport that's coming in from China, or how do you get stuff that's coming in? So it was a whole different language, a whole different rhythm. But in learning that, it taught me how to, I think, really grind and work in a way that I didn't understand that I had to grind and work in before. I had to go to meetings and meet with people in the NBA office or the NHL office or Major League Soccer. And I never had the opportunity as an assistant coach to take on those kind of meetings. So it matured me in a way, and I think helped me when I got back into, assistant coaching, that I really felt confident and prepared that I could, move on further and be, ready for my next opportunity in this business.
You've had an opportunity to coach different great players along the way. What was the Delaware guy with the jump hook that I grew up watching?
Mike Pegues. And Tim, to this day, he is the all-time leading scorer at Delaware, but he also is like, a big-time assistant coach at the University of Louisville right now.
You want to? So I did know that because, like, when you have random thoughts about players and you're like, I wonder what they're doing right now. I did look them up, but that was someone who I grew up kind of watching. I growing up on Long Island, Jay Wright's teams, and then they had Speedy Claxton and some other great players that got Jay Wright over the hump, right? And if he doesn't get those guys, we may never see Jay Wright on that platform. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, I remember when Hofstra was playing in a high school gym. So Jay Wright gets Speedy Claxton, who played in that high school gym. They build a new arena. Jay Wright gets a job, and then that's a crazy trajectory, and that's coaching. But you've had a chance to coach some great players, and one guy that stands out to me is Jeremy Lin. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was out in New York City. We were in the meatpacking district. I was out with Eli Manning and Dave Deal, not to name drop or anything, but we were going into a club. And I remember right before we walked in the club, the guy stopped us at the rope, and he goes, it's going to be $5,000 to get in. And I had about $200 on me. I go, I think we should go somewhere else, right? So we walked into a club, and this was the height of Linsanity. And we walk in, and there he is. And I'm not kidding, Coach. There was like a 30-second period where I was totally starstruck because he took over the world. I know it was about 4 weeks, and it was right in the middle of this 4 weeks, but it was really Linsanity. And I looked at him like Cindy Crawford. Like I was like, I can't believe you're standing here. Like I had that moment that I was like, what am I doing right now? Like this is maybe I was having a little bit too much fun that night. But during the middle of Linsanity, were you almost scratching your head being like, I can't believe this is going on right now?
I was glued. I was living in Stuytown at the time, which was crazy because he was actually living in the next building beside me.
Oh my goodness.
And it wasn't anything that he was living with his brother, and my future wife and I were living in the apartment, and we were literally probably living 100 yards from one another, which was insanely crazy. But But yeah, it was Jeremy. I mean, you think like of his history. He's a kid from Palo Alto, California. Did not have one Division I offer. Went to Harvard. Was about to transfer to either MIT or quit playing basketball after
Unbelievable.
freshman year. Tommy Amaker gets the job, and he brings me on staff. I see this kid, and I think, wow, he's got some talent. Let's see what happens with this. To go from that point of quitting the team to becoming a pretty good Ivy League player to having an incredible game in the summer league against John Wall when he was as a free agent, with the summer league team of the Mavs, and John Wall was with the Wizards. To playing with Steph Curry for a year at Golden State, going back and forth between the G League and then, like you said, Tim, becoming the biggest star athlete in the world.
Yeah.
For about a month. Totally insane.
Is that the craziest basketball story? And I'm sure you got a lot of them, and I don't want to cut you off. I want to hear more about Jeremy, but like, it's almost unbelievable. Like when you're telling it like when's the movie coming out, right? And who's going to play Jeremy Lin? Is it the craziest story you've watched someone's journey basketball wise?
Well, I think, I don't know how many games I went to at the Garden, and I watched tons of them on TV. I hated going to the Garden because trying to go from, sort of like the East Village to the Garden could be a very tricky thing. So
like 3.5 miles, but it could take you 2 hours. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was like, well, I'll stay at home and I'll watch Clyde. It's sometimes fun to watch Clyde and hear him kind of like narrate the story of the game than to actually go to the game. But I went to the game against Kobe Bryant.
Yep.
God rest his soul. And to see Jeremy, like, not going to say give Kobe the business, but give Kobe the business. Like, are you kidding me? in Madison Square Garden against the Lakers.
Yep.
Like, and just captivated all of New York. Like, New York has probably never sensed that energy, especially for the Knicks.
Yeah.
In the longest time. Like, I don't know when there was a moment or moments where the Knicks have captivated not only New York City, but the world the way that it did under Linsanity, which is, not bad for a kid that didn't have one Division I scholarship.
Yeah. I last question about him, because we want to dive in. I got about 2 more questions for you. We appreciate your time. When you walked out of the Garden that night and you just said Jeremy Lin gave Kobe Bryant the business, is that about as shocked as you've ever been walking out of a gym?
Probably. Maybe the Leitner shot against Kentucky. I might have been.
Oh yeah, great comparison. Yeah, I mean, you won 2 national championships. I mean, yeah, we'll brush that aside. Yeah, the Leitner shot is the greatest shot in college basketball history. I'll say it. If Gordon Hayward would have made the 3 from Butler off the backboard,
against Duke.
Yeah, that would have, in my eyes, that would have been the greatest shot ever. That game was really low scoring, hard to watch. But yeah, Leitner's shot, right? 10 for 10 from the field, 10 for 10 from the line, right? The perfect game. You were a part of that. But yeah, he's a great comparison. Were you more awestruck with Leitner's shot or Jeremy Lin, who was going to transfer to MIT, giving Kobe Bryant the business?
Look, I mean, I like that game against the Lakers, against, like, you got guys out there like Derek Fisher, who's an unbelievable defender, Kobe, who's an all-time great. The cast of characters that the Lakers had versus Jeremy and the Knicks. It's like, are you serious? Like, you got Melo out there, and it's Jeremy's like carrying the team. You can't write it. You can't write a better story. So I think certainly, what a incredible shot by Leitner, but just more unbelievable moment. Yeah, Jeremy Lin.
What I've heard about the Leitner shot was Coach K's calmness in the huddle. and is what Grant's gonna do, and he's gonna take the ball, he's gonna throw a football pass to Leitner, and you're gonna make the shot. Were you kind of in the huddle? Now you're a player at the time. Were you like, man, this seems a little far-fetched? Or was there a belief of like, we're actually gonna do this? And did you steal anything from that moment? I mean, it's one of the most iconic moments in the history of sports. Forget about it. I think it's the biggest shot in college basketball history. But Coach K's calmness, you're from like DC area. You're like, are you serious? This is really gonna work? Or what was actually like that moment like for you?
Well, Tim, we had a couple things. Like, growing up, I was a Duke fan. I grew up loving Georgetown, I loving Maryland. But Johnny Dawkins was like my hero and idol growing up,
Yep.
watching Tommy, watching all the DC guys really, I think, excel at Duke. Always, I was looking at those guys, and every chance I got to see them play, I watched. And I saw them win, year after year, making incredible shots. I think Leitner might have made a shot the year before that.
A
Maybe
little runner on, I think it was, yeah, I remember that.
in
Yeah,
the
against
Meadowlands.
UConn maybe. But I can't
Against
remember.
UConn in the Meadowlands.
That's
Exactly.
right. Yep.
You're exactly right. And so I've seen it over and over again with Duke, and I just, so we ran that same play against Wake Forest in one of the few games we lost that year. And Grant threw the ball, and it was a curveball.
Yeah, that's what happens when you throw a basketball, right? I mean, it's happened to me. It's hard to get that straight line trajectory. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it ended up being a curveball, and it ended up kind of like somebody, I think Leitner or somebody was trying to catch it, and it ended up at the scores table.
Yep.
So we had already had an experience of, not having success running that play. But it was something, like you said, about Coach K's confidence and calmness in that huddle at that time that was just, I think for us, it gave us the confidence that we could go out and execute it. And with Late, at that time, he was 9 for 9 and hadn't missed a shot. But shit,
Hey, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
the Sean Woods banker runner before Leitner shot, like all the air, like that was a gut shot where all the air had been knocked out of your belly a little bit. So Coach was very calm. He was very confident. So he kind of revigorated us and invigorated us again, and gave us that belief that we're going to win. So yeah, I have tried to take some of those very confident opportunities to talk to our players, and instill that confidence in them.
I know where I was during that shot. I was sitting in my parents' bedroom. I mean, I'm sure so many people have had that story to you where they were during that shot. I was born in '82, so Magic's hook over the Lakers, over the Celtics rather. That was really significant in my household. I say I remember that, but I really don't remember that because if I was born '82, that was '87. So I like to claim I remember that, but I knew where I was for that Leitner shot because one of the greatest games ever played. I think the greatest shot ever played. Last question for you, Coach. This is an important one. You're a member of the NABC Community on Racial Reconciliation. How has that experience been for you?
Tim, that's I think being a part of that committee. Again, I always preference stuff that I'm just a kid from, you know, from humble means in Washington, D.C. I grew up in an area and during a time that D.C. was considered the murder capital of the world. And at one point in time, kind of like the crack capital of the world. So for me to have an opportunity to impact change, to be a voice that can contribute to, communities. It's a loss for words, to be honest. And I say that in all humbleness and respectfulness. Like I can't even like like I'm lucky, man. I'm truly lucky and truly blessed to have this wonderful journey that I've been on. I thank all my mentors and guys that have kind of paved the way for me. But to be a contributor to something that is trying to change communities, trying to change individuals, trying to change and impact society in the way that, you know, it's gratifying, man. It is really gratifying, and I'm just really honored. I've been probably the newest member on the committee. I've just kind of sat back and listened, and to hear, you know, Frank Martin, to hear Tommy Amaker, to hear the coaches Quanzo Martin, you know, to hear these guys and, you know, the way that they look at things and the way they think about it, man. I've just, wow. That's all I can say is wow.
Well, it's been awesome hanging out with you. And, you know, it's the first time we've met over Zoom. I hope that our paths cross again. I would say at the Final Four, it doesn't seem likely this year, but in the future, we're talking with Coach Kenny Blakeney of Howard University. Really enjoy the time. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Thank you, NABC, for this opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you, everyone out there, for tuning into the NABC Guardians of the Game podcast. We will be back next time with another lovely guest in the world of college basketball. I don't know if they're going to be as well-rounded as Coach Blakeney. What a story. Thanks so much, Coach.
Take care. Thank you, Tim.